Welcome to the third session of the fourth module, in which we will discuss about the wind power and its strength, which is related to the velocity. Basically, this wind possesses energy by virtue of its motion. Any device capable of slowing down the mass of the moving air, the mass with which it moves. As I just told you, when I say it is air which is moving with some velocity, then it means that it possesses kinetic energy. When I say it is a kinetic energy, obviously it comes to be mv square. So mass, the mass with which it is moving, any instrument which can slow down its velocity with respect to the mass, like a sail, or it may be a propeller. That is what we propellers you must be remembering. Even in the Kaplan turbine, the blades which we call it as the propellers, and even in the ships and boats, they are all we call it as a propeller. The shape itself and the purpose makes it to call it as propeller. Propeller is nothing but which makes it to move or which obstructs. Is it clear? So can extract part of the energy and converts it into a useful work. There are three basic factors which determines the output from the wind energy converters. The wind speed, that is the first one. I just tell you, the wind speed, it is the one thing, and then the cross section of the wind swept by the rotor or the blades, and then the overall conversion efficiency of the rotor, and then the transmission system. The transmission system, it is always coupled with the generator or the pump. No device, however, well designed can extract all the winds, which is not possible, which is practically difficult to extract all the wind, that is the energy that has been carried by the wind. So that what happens, the wind would be brought to a halt, and this would prevent the passage of more air through the rotor. The most that wind restricts is been restricted by the interceptor, the maximum power can be extracted. The 100% efficiency of aero generators would therefore only be able to convert a maximum of around 60 to 50%. 50 to 60%, even if it is the 100% of the energy is available. So maximum of 60 to 50% of energy that can be achievable. That is the idea behind of it. Basically, this wind velocity, it is entirely different from the wind power. How it is been different? It is only by that velocity basically means it is a linear displacement, whereas the speed is nothing but, although in terms of physics I would like to say, may refer to the other things like speed of internet connections. Speed, so the speed of something is given in respect to the velocities of the emitted particles. So velocity is nothing but the linear displacement, whereas the speed is nothing but the velocities of the emitted particles is termed as the power. I'm so sorry, speed of the wind. Now, basically, how does this velocity is then causes wind velocity? Basically, the wind is caused by the differences in the atmospheric pressure, which is mainly caused by the temperature difference. And even in yesterday's class, we have discussed what are the three different types of the reasons. Uneven surface heating of the uh, uneven surface heating leads to the formation of the wind velocity. Is that clear? So simply we can define the speed of a wind as the fast air moving past a certain point. This may be averaged over a given unit of time, such as miles per hour, or an instantaneous speed, which is reported as a peak wind speed. The wind gust, or it is also called as a scull. SQUAL. It's a skull. So basically, so what happens? Velocity means a linear one, whereas the speed means with respect to the particles. That is the one. Basically, this what happens? What the fastest wind in the in the universe, maybe around 200 million kilometers per hour. Now, even you can see it here. whenever there is a cyclone, how the more the depression in the air or the more the pressure difference, the more the wind velocity. Basically, this wind energy is a special form of kinetic energy in air as it just flows dynamically. Okay, the wind energy can be either converted into electrical energy by the power converting machines or wind turbines or windmills, what we call it as, are directly used to pumping the water or sailing the ship or grinding a gain. So these are all the other purposes, not only converting this wind energy into electrical energy, that is what we prefer most of the cases, and we have also used this for pumping the water, sailing the ships, or grinding the gain. So these are all the different applications of this using wind energy. The kinetic energy exists whenever the an object of a given mass is in motion with a translation or rotational speed. That is the idea behind of it. Now, when air is in motion, the kinetic energy in moving air can be determined as EK, that is the energy or the kinetic energy is equal to half mu square. U is nothing but the velocity, and whereas the m is nothing but the mass of the air with which it moves. Now basically it's a common sense that air may not have a significant weight or a mass. It may not be significant, but what happens, you can see this v square, whatever the velocity with which it is coming, it is squared. So that means the quantity or the amount of energy possessed by this is tremendous. That is what, even my dear friends, a bullet is also made in the gun. Now you can see this bullet is a very small uh, dimension. Is that clear? You take a wood, it is of a higher dimension, but still when you throw a wood or when you trigger a bullet makes a lot of difference with the wood. It is only because the size, in addition to the size or a mass, the velocity with which it moves makes a lot of difference. You just take a chalk piece and just throw it. The velocity with which it is going makes a difference. Is that clear? So because it is v square. Okay. Now where m is the mass of the air and u is the mean wind speed over a suitable time period. The wind power can be obtained by differentiating. Now by differentiating this, we can obtain the kinetic energy in wind with respect to the time. After obtaining that, Pw, that is the power of the wind, is equal to half into rho a u cube. So we are just differentiating this. So the same thing, when I differentiate this, I'll get power. So I just shall keep this as power as it is, and this is differentiating this, u square will leaves me to u cube, whereas rho is nothing but the density of the air and a is nothing but the cross sectional area which has been exposed to that particular wind. So area is nothing but meter square, whereas this is nothing but kg per meter cube. Is that clear? So u is nothing but meters per second, so it is meter cube per second cube, whereas this area is meter square, whereas the density is nothing but kg per meter cube. This is how it just balances the equation. Is that clear? Now if you take further, if differentiating this, P of W is equal to D of EK, that is differentiating with this with respect to the time, it leaves to half mu square. However, only a small portion of the wind power can be converted into electrical power. When the wind passes through a wind turbine and drives blades to rotate, the corresponding wind mass flow rate is given by mass flow rate. I am talking about mass flow rate. M dot is nothing but kgs per second is equal to rho into A into U. Now please be here, my careful be here, my defense. Now rho is nothing but kg per meter cube, and it is meter square. Meter square and meter cube will get cancelled and left out with kg per meter. whereas this U is nothing but meters per second. So it is nothing but meters per second, and meter will get cancels, and we will be left out with kgs per second, where rho is the air density and A is the swept area of the blades. Substituting this third equation into the second equation, the available power in wind Pw can be expressed as given as. This reveals that in order to obtain a higher wind power, it requires a higher wind speed, a longer length of blades for gaining a larger swept area, and a higher air density. Because the wind power output is proportional to the cubic power of the mean speed, a small variation in wind speed can result in a large change in wind power. So hence, if you can see this sketch, where the wind turbines have been exposed here like this, and this is the area which is available. Now you can see this completely dotted lines. This is the area wherein which the velocity is being converted. So what happens, U is the velocity with which it is coming over here, and the area is the one along the circumference of an imaginary lines which has been generated by the blades. Major problems associated with wind power. The wind is inconsistent. Let me go one by one. What are the problems associated with wind power? The wind is inconsistent. Wind energy has a lot in common with solar energy in terms of consistency. Although the wind energy qualifies as a renewable resources, wind speeds fluctuate each day. This can be a big disappointment to wind turbines, to developers who will commit every penny and every ounce of energy in the project only to end with fluctuating wind patterns. This is why the developers must do their research first to pinpoint the best location for setting up turbines before actual installations. The best locations must have a sufficient supply of wind. This explains why you will almost always see wind turbines installed on a top of high elevations like hills, mountains and offshores, where there are minimal obstacles that could potentially slow down the speed of the wind. Higher elevations are preferred, since the higher up you go, the stronger the winds you go. That is the reason why most probably you might have always seen the wind turbines or windmills are always placed on the higher altitudes above the mountains. Is it clear? That is the idea behind of it. So when it comes to the other problem, that is a major one, is a wind turbine involves high upfront capital investments. A lot has been done to bring down the cost of the installing turbines. The overall cost, however, remain on the higher side. The first step to installing a turbine is usually to do a rigorous survey to determine the wind speed of the locations. This involves erecting a sample turbine to gauge the wind speeds over a stipulated period. If the location is found to be ideal, the wind turbine will be manufactured and transported to the site and set up a strong foundation. It has to sustain a strong foundation. It is only because it will be very tall and it will be subjected to a rotation, and this rotation will always encourages, will always leads to sort of vibrations, and this foundation should be good enough to sustain these vibrations and stand still irrespective of the major wind blows. The entire process adds up to the cost of setting up a wind turbine. The wind turbine, that is the upfront capital investment is required. The transportation itself, it is a biggest challenge. Actually, you might have seen it, such a long. It is an assembled one, but still a long tube-like structures. It will be carried throughout uh, the big lorries with 18 wheels or 26 wheels. They will be carrying it from the manufactured place to the place where it has to be mounted. Say for example, it is a mountain, it is above the mountain, then it has to take all the curves, and such a huge load has to be taken place. It's a major challenging factors. So the wind turbines have a visual impact. Although the wind turbines come with eye-catching designs, they impact the natural beauty of the landscape. That is true actually. Whenever you say uh, you see a forest, it looks very pretty cool with the greeneries and all those things. But a odd one out, the windmills will be placed in between those forests, makes it it impacts on the natural beauty of the landscape. When a lot more wind turbines are set up, the area becomes unsightly. The local community starts to sound alarm bells, and this can escalate to conflicts. It is only because one of the major problem is even these things. It is the meteorological people have discussed, and they have found that even it affects the flying lives also. That is, birds also it affects. That is the reason why, and majorly it makes a lot of sound, which relates to the noise factors. Though many people believe that wind turbines actually look nice, but a majority of them disagree with this. People consider wind turbines to have a undesirable experience. Okay. Petitions usually come into court before any proposed wind farm development, but few people think otherwise and feel they should be kept intact for everyone to enjoy its beauty. It looks very beautiful actually, wind turbines, to see it, but when you go near to that, then you will find how difficult to stand near to that and how annoying to hear that noise. Exactly. This may reduce the local bird population. That is what I just meant to say this. The birds are very intelligent in sensing the changes in environment. God has given such a good sensors to them. Before any human beings or any devices which can find the changes in the environment, these birds will sense it. So whenever we have such a huge uh, wind machines over the mountains, where it is all affects the birds life population also. Wind turbines are particularly disadvantageous on the local bird species. This is the reason why environmentalists, they oppose these wind turbines to be placed. A lot of bird death as a result of collision with the turbine blades has been reported in these areas. It is only because whenever the air takes them away, and when the air strikes, even the birds, by by mistake, by accidentally, they strikes the blades and they leads to the death. This is a major concern to be considered. This can wipe out the population of certain bird species. Also, the wind turbines require them to dig deep into the earth, which could have a negative effect on the underground habitats also. Now, whatever you see this turbine length, the one fourth of that has to be digged and the foundation has to be placed in such a way that. So obviously, it that certainly affects the underground habitats also. Exactly. And whenever there is a noise, it is very annoying not only for humans, it is also for the animals and birds also. And whatever the area wherein which you are placing, not only placing the wind turbine, it is also the route that you are making. Say for example, if you want to take the windmill over there, you should have a road. In order to make the road itself, they will cut so many plants and they will make the road. Unless otherwise you make a road, you cannot shift it. So this is all the major drawbacks. However, there has been an influx of bladeless wind turbines in the marketplaces designed to reduce the birds' deaths. Now there is a most advanced wind turbines have come into picture without the blades. Let us know how it will be, isn't it? Without the blades, how can we extract it? That is one of the challenge or interesting thing to be studied. This could be a game changer for a turbine manufacturers. Ceylon people are the one who are pioneers in manufacturing these wind turbines. Wind turbines are prone to noise disturbances or a noise pollution. It makes more. No, they are more prone to noise disturbances. The most hated, the most hated disadvantage of the wind turbine is the noise they produce. The sound produced by one turbine can be perceived from the far distances also. It is something like a train sound, and regularly it will be making the sounds. Combine many turbines and the noise becomes unbearable. If you have a one turbine, it makes so much of noise. If you have a series of turbines, you cannot expect any animals, birds or human beings to stay nearby that. So that sounds carries a long distance also. Okay, many homeowners or house owners leaves have been turned upside down due to the noise pollution from the turbines. It certainly affects on the brain working of human beings also. Although the emphasis is to site wind turbines away from the local communities, most companies disregard these rules. That enough care should be taken that it has to be placed only in the completely outskirts, away from the city limits. But certainly we cannot make sure that it doesn't affect the animals. It does affect the animals certainly. This explains the strong public objections to wind turbines installation in most of the areas. That is the reason why if you go for any villages or places, cities, people go against this placing of installation of these wind turbines. It is only because it makes a lot of noise and it affects the human health also. That is the reason why people are more against this installation. The visual pollution is another reason why people do not find it attractive to install it in their backyard, obviously. And even one way, even the study reveals that by placing these wind turbines, it also uh, redirect the movement of the clouds also. Whatever the clouds which forms, if the wind is moving, usually clouds will be carried by the winds, not any personally one. So when the wind is being carried from one wind carries out the clouds from one place to the other place. If you are restricting that wind, obviously the cloud movements will also restrict it. So once the cloud is been restricted, obviously the rain deficiency will also comes into the point. So this is the one latest research which causes the shortage of rain because of the shortage of clouds movements. Then the installation can take up a significant portion of the land. That is what I was talking even in the earlier point. Installation may take of certain area, but to carry those materials itself, it takes a lot of area because you have to make a road, then you have to cut more so many trees, then you have to make the road, make sure that road should not slip when they are carrying such a huge materials. So this best location of the wind turbines can be the most fertile land where farming is being practiced. That is the major one. And once the road is made, you cannot grow once again. It is only because for the maintenance, all those things, the vehicles have to be moved near to the windmills. Then they obviously keep the road for a permanent one. Just for a windmill they have to make so much of fertile land, or trees have to be cut. This is very embarrassing, isn't clear. So the installation of wind turbines would take away the land that has been the bedrock of agricultural activities for many years. Whether it may be agriculture or it may be a forest, is it clear? Now people are knowing what is the importance of agriculture and the importance of trees after the deficiency of oxygen, isn't it? So whether it is a fruitful or not, a tree is a tree, a green is a green. Is it clear? Now people are getting awareness what is the importance of oxygen, what is the importance of the plantations after getting the scarcity. Is it clear? When the naturally available oxygen they have been reduced it, now they are searching here and there for the an artificial oxygen. This is own because our own mistakes has come to our back. Is it clear? Now let us find out wind turbines can be a safety hazardous. That is true. In the last couple of decades, a frequency of tornadoes, hurricanes, and cyclones has increased considerably. Whenever there is a hurricanes, cyclones, now there is a Taukat cyclone is been coming. Now this makes the turbines to be most hazardous. It may not sustain that hurricanes or the cyclones effects. Now these severe storms can cause an extensive damage. It causes an extensive damage to the wind turbines and can be safety hazard to the people working in these wind farms. The damage may cause huge damage to the wind turbines also. Not only wind turbines, now even certain occasions what happens since it is being placed very tall, once if it falls down because of the heavy storm or hurricanes, when my dear friends, don't underestimate these hurricanes or cyclones, they can take the house itself. When it can take the house and turbines itself, it has got lot of energy associated with that. Is it clear? Now it can take the bus and trains away from the places. It can take it and throw it somewhere. So such kind of hurricanes or storms can damage them. Once it has been damaged, if it falls down, since it is a tall, once it falls down like this, once if it falls down like this, so it always damages the complete one. It always damages the place where it is going to fall. Now to evacuate it and clean it, once again they have to cut the trees and they have to make the place. Is it clear? So that is a major problem with the safety hazard. Now when we take this, the other the important one is the wind turbines are suited for a particular region. This is one interesting thing actually. Wind turbines, that is wind, we have all in the previous class also we have studied, and we have studied where the data has been collected, where this wind energy availability is more. Out of 16 states, different states has got its own capacities of the wind turbines. So wind turbines cannot be placed everywhere. Is it clear? So the wind turbines are suited to the coastal regions which receives wind throughout the year to generate power. Now my dear friends, when I was talking about uneven surface heating, the surface of the water and the surface of the earth is more differ or more significant in the coastal side, because there will be a tremendous amount of the sea area is available. So the obviously the current with which the air moving also is significant. So what we do, it is always been advisable to keep this wind turbines near to the coastal regions. That is first point. And the second point is hilly stations or hilly areas where though we are not getting the sufficient wind at the bottom side or the lower side, we will be getting at the top. It is only reason because a lot of trees, a lot of buildings, they restrict, they filter the velocity, they keeps reducing the velocity by the time it comes to your home. So something like that. So what happens, because of so many structures restricts it, even the winds are also been restricted with the hill, the big mountains. Is that clear? But at the top of the hills or the mountains, the sufficient wind will be coming with certain velocity, with higher velocity. So that is the reason why people always suggest to go for the wind turbines which are near to the coastal places. And therefore countries that do not have any coastal or hilly areas may not be able to take any advantage of the turbines. That is the reason why one should have a the hilly stations or a mountains, or it should also have a coastal places. Exactly. Such kind of countries, say for example, if you take any mid part of the Madhya Pradesh, where the wind flow will not be as significant. When you take the Nadu, which has been exposed to the coastal, if you take Karnataka, the complete Western Ghats has been exposed to uh, the coastal places. So these will have the advantage of having the wind turbines. Okay. Now, if you see the location of the wind power system is a crucial, and one should determine the best possible location for wind turbines in order to capture as much wind as possible. Just like a solar energy which release heavily upon the sun to produce power, wind energy needs high speed winds to produce power on a constant basis. It is something like this, my dear friends. Even the solar energy, while placing the solar energy, we always see that there should be enough solar flux or radiations to be there. Similarly, even in the wind energy also, wind turbines also, we will always look for the wind where sufficient power is available. So such kind of locations that we concentrate more to place this particular wind turbines. Okay.